want to take you back to a conversation I had that changed everything. I was sitting with my aunt. Now, this is someone that I trusted, someone that was safe, someone who wasn't going to sugarcoat the truth, but that I could talk to. I had spent so long trying to make sense out of what was happening in my marriage. I was exhausted, confused, hurt, and even though I knew something wasn't right, I was still doubting myself. I was telling her how lost I felt, how I couldn't seem to get through to him, I couldn't even seem to have conversations, how no matter what I did, nothing seemed to ever change, and I told her that I was thinking about divorce. And then she asked me a question that stopped me cold. She said, "Before you leave this marriage, can you honestly say from your heart that you've given it your all, that you've done everything you know to do?" I paused. And I told her what I felt in my heart. "No, I can't say that. I don't feel that way." And she looked at me and she said, "Okay, if you are going to leave this marriage, then you have to change that first." And I knew she was right. Not because I believed that I had to prove myself to anyone, but because I needed to know that I could walk away knowing I had done everything I knew to do. I wanted to walk away with peace in my heart, not regret. So I asked myself, what would it take for me to say that? What would it take for me to be able to answer yes? I gave it my all. What still needed to happen on my end? I wasn't sure. And what came to me was this: I needed to stop editing the truth. I needed to stop watering things down in order to keep the peace. Instead, I needed to be honest, painfully honest, not cruel, not dramatic, just real. I needed to say out loud to him how much I was hurting, how scared I was that the marriage might end, how alone I felt inside a relationship that was supposed to be my safe space. And so I did. I laid it all out there on the table, and nothing changed. In fact, many things got worse. But that's when I knew I could answer yes. I gave it everything I had. That question, did you do enough? Did you give it all? Did you try hard enough? Sounds innocent enough. It sounds wise, even. We've all been taught that relationships take work, that love means sacrifice, so we shouldn't give up too soon. And that's fine. But here's the problem: when you're in a relationship with a covert narcissistic person, you're already trying too hard. You're already doing everything above and beyond. You're already doing everything you possibly can. You're the one reading all the books. You're the one going to therapy, often alone. You're the one adjusting your tone, your words, your timing, your reactions, your expectations. You're the one staying up at night wondering how you can either be, better or calmer or more patient or more forgiving. So when someone asks you if you've really tried, what they don't see is that you've been over trying for years. You've been over functioning in this relationship for decades. So once again, this question can put the weight of the entire relationship on your shoulders. It's your responsibility to figure everything out, your job to do all the work, your place to fix this. And when you're already drowning, being asked to swim harder, that's not just unfair, it's cruel. I remember being told one time by his mom, "You're the healthy one, so it's your job to fix this. You're stronger, so you have to be the one to do it." Well, thanks a lot. This after I've spent the last 15 years trying to keep peace with him and failing miserably. If I'm supposed to be better at this because I'm supposedly healthier or stronger, then why am I failing so badly at this? And why doesn't he help some? Many survivors stay for years and decades not because they don't see the harm, but because they're terrified of walking away too soon. They think, what if I could have done more? What if I just wasn't patient enough? What if it was my fault that we didn't make it? And that belief that you have to earn your freedom by doing everything perfectly is one of the most powerful tools that covert narcissistic abusers use to keep you stuck. But here's the truth: even if you give it your all, they won't meet you there. You can pour your heart out with honesty and vulnerability, and they will still sidestep accountability, downplay your pain, and turn it back on you. But at least then you have your answer. This relationship cannot be fixed by effort alone, especially when you are the only one doing all the work, when one person isn't even trying. I hear people say, it takes two. Okay, I get that. And I understand what they're saying is it takes two to make a healthy relationship. At least that's the way I look at it. They might say it takes two to fight, but no, it takes two to make a healthy relationship. It only takes one to destroy it. And if one is destroying it, the other one cannot fix it. Now, this question of how do I know when I've done enough has haunted so many survivors of covert narcissistic abuse. And I want to tell you something that's kind of radical here. And I say this as someone who has lived this. Enough does not have to mean perfect. Enough, in fact, doesn't mean perfect. It doesn't mean that you never got angry. It doesn't mean that you handled every conflict flawlessly. I assure you I didn't. Enough means you tried in good faith. You showed up. You told the truth. You gave what you had to offer. And when that did not lead to real change, growth, connectedness, it just led to empty promises. It just led to short-term improvement, but not sustained growth. Then it's okay to say that was enough. You're not leaving because you didn't try hard enough. You're leaving because you are the only one trying. You're leaving because the relationship is not mutual. And you are allowed to stop trying when your trying is costing you yourself. Now let's talk about what giving it your all really means, because I need to be very clear about this. Giving this relationship your all, whatever that means, does not mean that you had to hand them every book that was ever written on narcissism. It does not mean that you have to curate a perfect playlist of every podcast and video that explains emotional abuse. It's not about finding that one magical article that will finally open their eyes. Yes, there's always going to be one more resource, one more expert, one more metaphor that you didn't use, but that's not the point. Could I have given him a different book to read? Sure. Could I have tried a different tone of voice or a different analogy? Absolutely. But I gave him me. I gave him my heart, my fears, my truth, my pain, my vulnerability, my desire to make it work. And I did it with honesty, compassion, and pure intention. This is what it means to give it your all. Because here's the thing, if someone cannot meet you in that space of raw truth, if they cannot even acknowledge your pain when you lay it bare before them, then it does not matter how many podcasts they listen to. If they don't respond to your truth with curiosity, humility, or even a desire to change, then handing them more information is not going to fix this. It's not going to create intimacy. It will only delay your healing. If you've tried 50 different things and 51 would have worked, that's on them. So yes, I did everything I could. And not because I exhausted the internet of resources, but because I gave him access to the most honest, unguarded version of me. And he did not meet me there. That's when I knew I was alone and I was done. So instead of asking, did I try hard enough? Try asking, have I given this my all? Have I done everything I know to do? You also might ask, have I lost my peace, my identity, and my joy in this process? And you might even ask, what would I say to someone I love if they were in this same relationship? These are the questions that often bring clarity. When you imagine someone you care about living the life that you're living, suddenly your tolerance makes less sense. Your excuses feel thinner and your pain becomes more visible. That's the beginning of clarity and freedom. You don't need to find the perfect way to explain your pain. Just be honest. You don't need to try one more thing just to justify your exit. You don't need to break yourself into smaller pieces just to keep something that's already broken. You are allowed to leave a relationship that is damaging your spirit, even if they never hit you. You are allowed to walk away from someone who refuses to see you, even if they say they love you. You are allowed to say, I gave it everything I had, and still decide it's not enough to stay. Trying harder won't heal something that was never built on mutual care, and staying longer won't earn you peace. It will only give you more of the same. So if you're asking yourself today, but did I try hard enough? Let me gently offer this. Maybe the better question is, why are you the only one asking that? Maybe, just maybe, it's time to stop trying so hard, and it's time to start healing. Now, if this speaks to your heart, please know you are not alone, and you are not crazy. You've been carrying more than your share for far too long. And if you're ready to start putting that energy back into you, find the help and support that you need. Visit covertnarcissism.com to find the resources available to you. Yes, this podcast group. Yes, there's a Facebook group that's a wonderful community for healing. And then also I do offer individual and group coaching sessions. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast because your healing deserves a voice. And that voice, it's yours now. I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. The information provided by Renee Swanson, Covert Narcissism Podcast, and CNG Life Coaching is for educational purposes only and is not to be used for diagnosis purposes. It is not intended to be a substitute for clinical care. Please consult a health care provider for guidance specific to your case. This material discusses narcissism in general. Renee shares stories from her personal experience as well as from those she has talked with for several years. Her material does not claim that any specific person has narcissism and should not be used to refer to any specific person as having narcissism. Permission is not granted to link to or repost this material to support any allegation or claim that any specific person is a narcissist. That would be an unauthorized misuse of the material and information provided.